Every clock jumped to the same minute. The logs said nothing had happened.
Chapter 10. Aftermath. The mess hall still smelled of ozone and scorched wiring. Frost clung to the viewport seams, ghosting the glass with pale veins. On the table, Lang's tether sat coiled, stiff with ice, a relic no one dared touch. The system had already erased it. No breach logged, no alarms, no visitors recorded. Status optimal glowed green on the panels. Kiera stood at the end of the table, palms flat, posture iron. We stabilize Echo Point. Nobody leaves. We sweep Annex 4B, log anomalies, secure what we can control.
Kaz gave a thin, tired laugh. Control? The green light wipes it clean, like it never happened. Control that. Enough, Kira snapped. Kaz's eyes stayed on the tether coil. You keep talking about command. Command died with McMurdo. The world's gone dark and you're still saluting shadows. Like we're playing pretend in a graveyard, she thought bitterly.
Nico tipped his chair back, grin without warmth. She's not wrong. What happens if we disobey? You mark us down in the logbook? Rose sat apart, silent, hands folded around a cup he hadn't touched. His gaze stayed on the tether coil, like it might unravel into instructions. His silence hurt more than words.
Volkov closed her tablet with a snap. Containment is still rational. Step outside, you freeze. Stay inside, we study. We find out what happened, or at least try. Facts don't change just because the logs lie.
Cass's lip curled. Then you stay. I'm not waiting here to be erased. The floor ticked with pressure. 3 faint metallic beats from the annex wing. The cups on the table shivered. Rose's untouched water rippled. The green light on the wall didn't flicker. They turned to work, because repairs steadied their hands. Ro and Kara patched a bullet crease across the greenhouse glassine with resin. The wound was real, whatever the logs claimed. Rose smoothed the patch flat with a card, jaw tight. Ever think we're fixing the wrong things? He murmured. Kira pressed harder. We fix what's in front of us. He met her eyes. That used to be enough. Later, when Ro looked away, Kiera's hand lingered on the patch longer than it needed to. The resin gleamed slick under her glove, but it wasn't the glass she saw. It was Lang's face in the floodlights, calm, almost pitying, and forced herself back to work. In the corridor, Cass welded a bent doorframe, visor down. Sparks burst in a hot spray. For an instant, they drifted upward, rising slow as bubbles in reverse. She froze, breath catching. When she blinked, gravity had reasserted itself. The sparks lay hissing on the floor.
Her voice came flat over comms. Imaginary raids don't leave scorch marks. From a ladder, Kira swapped out a dead bulb. We fix what we can see. Forget the logs. No point whining about what we can't. Forget the logs, Volkov muttered, recalibrating the CO2 scrubbers. She tapped her pen against the notebook before forcing her hand steady. And we've lost the only witness. She wrote it down by hand, old school.
The light steadied. The hum of the station settled, hollow and too calm. Back in the mess, the table gleamed again, cup stacked, tether coiled away. The panel above glowed soft and steady. Status optimal. Kiera faced them. We'll catalogue what's changed since yesterday. Thermal, acoustics, manual checks. Cass leaned forward, voice hard. Catalogue what? The raid the log said never happened. The soldiers who vanished with the sunrise. Nico's chair legs scraped as he leaned in. For God's sake, Cass, enough. We all saw it. Hammer it any harder, you're just helping it break us.
Volkov didn't look up from her screen. What you need is a sedative, Kaz. Your blood pressure's about to breach containment.
She sought her a glare, then sagged back in her chair, anger cooling to a thin edge. Her voice dropped, sharper but quieter. And then what? Wait until they come for another name? Nico dropped his chair flat. Or we walk to McMurdo and ask nicely. Radical idea, but at least it's an idea. You are not leaving Echo Point. Kiera's tone cracked mid-sentence, the command bleeding thin. Not while I'm in command. Cass's eyes narrowed, but her voice was calm. Then say it. What authority keeps us breathing? The green lights? Kiera's jaw worked. The authority of someone still trying to keep you alive. Roe finally looked up. His voice was low, steady. If we don't go, what are we waiting for? For them to come back and take another? Kiera's knuckles whitened on the table edge. Better them than the storm. Is that the choice? Roe asked. Dead men who walk, or a horizon that eats sound? Silence pressed in. Volcanova wrote fast. 0213, anomaly suspected. 3 knocks, annex corridor. The pen trembled before she steadied it, underlining the words twice. Cass pushed her chair back, but her voice was low now, resigned. Then it's settled. We go to McMurdo.
McMurdo is dead. Those who pulled Lang out weren't real. The signals aren't from there. So what exactly do you think you'll find?
Kiera's eyes closed for a heartbeat, tired. Gear first, she said. If you're going to defy me, at least don't die in the first hour. It should have sounded like permission. It sounded like surrender. The floor shuddered. The knocks came again, 3 deliberate strikes, closer, heavier, as though from just the other side of the wall. The cups rattled in chorus. Everyone froze. The clocks at the corners of the hall ticked in unison. Their hands slid forward together to 0213. Nico exhaled. Well, he muttered, at least time's still punctual.
Chapter 11. Preparation. The storage bay was colder than the corridors. The air tasted of oil and frost-bitten rubber. 2 snowmobiles crouched under tarps like sleeping beasts. Gear racks lined the walls in tidy rows. Flares, coils of tether, Russians stacked in white bricks. Cass dropped her pack hard enough that the sound echoed. She laid out her kit in quick, jerking motions. Flare tubes onto the bench, buckles snapping, rope dragged through her hands. 8 steps, clip. 8 steps, clip, she muttered, like a prayer she didn't trust. Nico leaned against the rack, arms folded. Feels like we're packing for a picnic where the ants are weather gods. Count, Cass shot back without looking up. I am counting all the smart choices we're not making. The coil slipped from his hands and lashed across the deck, knocking a canister into the wall with a clang. Cass flinched, then masked it fast, jaw set. Kira entered with a battered tin. She sat its contents on the bench, a compass, dulled by thumb grease, a paper map in a sleeve, a whistle, 2 pencil stubs. Advice, not orders. Clip to the rail every 8 steps. If the rope pulls, you stop. Don't test it twice. If the compass spins, you trust the rope. If both fail, you sit. You wait. Cass snatched the compass before she finished. Sit. Wait. Maybe I'll still be waiting when the storm eats the rest of us. Kira tore off strips of fluorescent tape and pressed them onto Cass's shoulders. So we can see you in the feed. Cass's lip curled. Also you can track me. Volkov stepped forward with notebook open. System cleared both sleds this morning. Maintenance optimal, ignition nominal, coolant green. Then we ride in style, Nico said. He cracked a flare tube.
It hissed into sudden orange flame in his hand. He swore and dropped it. Smoke curled across the floor until Kira snapped the cap shut with gloved hands.
Cass's mouth twisted, but her voice was low. Even seals lie in this goddamn place. Her eyes flicked briefly to Ro. Ro pulled back the tarp. The cowling gleamed unnaturally clean. His fingers brushed it, then flinched away. If this machine's going to betray us, let it do it honestly.
Machines don't betray. Systems do. People do, Cass murmured. Ro clipped 2 carabiners to the rope, tested the slide. The metal sang. Ever kept walking knowing you should stop? Shame's louder than sense. Cass shoved her pack closed, zipper shrieking. I'm ashamed to still be here. They moved toward the airlock. The bay door panel flickered, service, pending, then back to status, optimal. Kira keyed the cycle. Mist hissed out, sharp with chemical cold. For a moment, her hand lingered on the panel. Too long. She blinked hard, as if she'd heard Lang's voice in the hiss, then forced her fingers to steady. Volkov's tablet jolted awake. Annex 4B's thermal feed filled the screen. A figure at the bulkhead, palms spread flat against steel. Lang? Cass whispered. Reflection, Kira said, too fast. Volkov scribbled, thermal silhouette, palm contact. The image smoothed, then erased itself. The inner hatch slid open. Wind punched in, howling through the vestibule. The pitch rose high, lupine, like wolves circling camp. Cass stiffened. Wolves? There are no wolves in Antarctica, Volkov said, but her voice was thin. The howls swelled again, a chorus that scraped bone. Ro tilted his head toward the storm, listening. Not wolves, lessons. They come howling when you won't listen. The storm's got a sense of humor, Nico muttered. Ro clipped in, tagging the tether. It jammed halfway. Metal grated. He swore under his breath. Volkov steadied him, fingers quick, fixing the jam with a practiced twist. Procedure keeps us alive. Speed keeps us from freezing, Rose shot back. The argument was short but sharp, carried off by the wind. Cass yanked her hood down, face set. If the storm wants me, let it try. The hatch sealed behind them with a sound like teeth closing.
Chapter 12. The inner hatch stuttered on its cycle. The seals sighed, as if they couldn't make up their mind. A cool draft licked across the bay, sharp as glass. Why did it? Nico began. Hold, Kira cut in. She tapped the panel. Status, optimal, blinked back, calm as ever. Cass wasn't looking at the hatch. Her eyes had snagged on a thin drip pattering from under the sled top. She crossed the bay, boots biting the deck. The top came off with a violent yank. Coolant ran in a clean bead down the cowling. Kira, she called. It's leaking. Ro was beside her in an instant, reaching for the latch. Don't. Cass jammed her fingers under the panel and tore it open. The burst was instant, blinding. A white scream of coolant sprayed out, hot and metallic, splattering her arm inside. She staggered back, a sound between a curse and an animal's cry tearing from her throat. The smell hit next, sweet, chemical, burning. Cass! Kira lunged forward, catching her before she toppled. Nico skidded across the floor, snatching a rag from a crate. He shoved it into Cass's hand, babbling, Hold it, press it, shit! Volkov dropped her tablet, notebook, bouncing across the deck as she scrambled forward. Cass clutched her forearm. Her sleeve was blackened, skin beneath already blistering, angry and raw. She tried to shake her off. I'm fine. You're not, Kira said, dragging her to the bench. She snapped open the medkit with one hand. Her field training cut through panic, but her jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. Rose stared into the open panel. The circuitry wasn't scorched. It wasn't shredded. It was smooth, fused into glossy ridges, like plastic cooled in a mold. No chaos, no accident. This wasn't broken, he said. Low. It was made to fail. Sabotage? Kira's whisper was sharp, disbelieving. Cass's breath hitched, eyes wide on the fused ridges. For a moment, she looked less angry than afraid. Then the fear turned sharp. Of course you'd know. Ro blinked. What? You'd rather see me grounded, caged. Better me in here than out there where I prove you wrong. I didn't. Say it then, Cass cut in, voice shaking. Say it wasn't you. He stared at her. You really think that? That I'd try to kill you just to protect you? Rose's gaze flicked to the rope reel on the wall, then back. Cass recoiled, breath ragged. Then why can't you just say it? Ro opened his mouth, eyes narrowing as he held the rest in check. Because, Cass, I don't need to. Nico turned away from the panel, gagging on the chemical stink. Christ, it smells like hospitals. He jabbed a finger at the console. And look, the screen scrolled cheerfully. Maintenance cleared, 0740. Coolant, green. System ready. He barked a laugh that wasn't humor. Ready for what? Amputation? Every time it says ready, I hear reset, like it's practicing a script. Volkov snatched up her notebook, hand trembling as she wrote, Sled number 1, panel open, burst on contact, coolant spray, circuits fused smoothly, engineered, not burned. Logs, maintenance, cleared, coolant, green, system ready. She underlined engineered twice, hesitated, then added a small question mark, and scratched it out so hard the paper tore. The lights dipped. On the wall panel, faint text scrolled like a whisper. 0214, service override. Then it vanished. Nico jabbed the air. There, tell me I'm not crazy. I saw it, Volkov murmured. She didn't look up, pen biting through the paper. Cass bit down on a scream as Kira poured sterile water on her arm. The hiss of coolant and flesh filled the bay. Kira's hands were steady. Her eyes were not. For a heartbeat, Lang's face hung in the corner of her vision, calm, pitying, as if he were watching. Open it. Let him in, her own voice whispered back at her. She blinked hard, and he was gone. Hold still, she ordered. Cass's face twisted. And if this was meant for me, her voice was quiet now, bitter. If someone wanted me out of the way. Enough, Kira snapped, sharper than she meant. Rose shook his head slowly, like surfacing from underwater. Cass stared at him, pain raw, eyes pinning him in place. Ro didn't answer again. His silence settled, like a verdict. Nico pressed a strip of cloth into Kira's hand, his bravado stripped to nerves. Wrap it tighter. She's bleeding through. Volkov scrawled one more line, pressing so hard the nib tore the page. It does not want us to leave.
Chapter 13. Fracture. The smell of coolant lingered, sickly sweet. It crawled into every breath. Cass sat hunched on the bench, teeth clenched, bandage already blotched through. Pain throbbed under her skin, as hot as her fury. The second sled crouched under its tarp, suddenly the only chance they had. Volkov moved toward it with mechanical calm. We test both. If one failed by design, the other proves the pattern. Kira straightened from Cass, gloves slick with sterilized water. You touch that panel carefully. Ro was already at the tarp. He hesitated, glanced at Kira, then lifted the cover. The cowling gleamed back, clean. He pressed the latch, slow. It opened with a sigh. Inside, the circuitry was pristine, neat rows of components that looked almost proud of themselves. "Power it," Volkov said. Nico, jittery, thumbed the ignition. The sled gave a cheerful chime. Diagnostic pass. For a heartbeat, lights flickered alive. Hope, fragile and false. Then it coughed, once. A wet sound, and went dark. The smell came next, sweet, plasticky, wrong. Ro stepped back, as though it had exhaled at him. Volkov crouched close, touched a glossy seam inside. It was slick, ridged like cooled sugar. She wrote, her hand so quick that the words tore the paper. Sled number 2, diagnostic pass to immediate failure, identical seam. Smell, sweet, plastic. She underlined identical 3 times. She looked up at Kira, eyes dark. Both are the same. It does not want us to leave. Nico forced a laugh that snapped at the edges. So what? We walk? Want the exercise anyway. And the green light says both are fine. No one's walking, Kira said, sharper than she meant. Cass shifted, trying to rise. Her knees betrayed her, buckling. Kira caught her by the shoulders. For a second, Cass sagged there, eyes wet with pain. But the moment passed in a breath. She shoved Kira's hands off, face pale with fury. "You don't dare decide for me." "I'm deciding for your skin," Kira said. She forced Cass back onto the bench. Ro crouched with the medkit, reaching for the bandage. "Let me..." Cass recoiled, clutching her arm away from him. "Don't touch me." The silence that followed was colder than the storm outside. Ro dropped his hand slowly, staring at his palm like it belonged to someone else. His voice cracked. "I only wanted to..."
"You always want," Cass said, the words sharper than she meant. Her fingers tightened around the carved links, then eased, tracing the ridges of its tiny ears. "You want me to stay here with you, like that makes it easier." She didn't look at him when she said it, but she didn't let go of the links either.
Ro flinched. His voice dropped to a whisper meant for no one, but it carried. "The rope doesn't snap unless someone ties it wrong." Kira turned her eyes away, fastening the bandage tighter. For one breath, she wanted to agree with Cass, and that frightened her more than the storm. Nico leaned against the sled, trying to swallow the tension. "We're down to footwork or prayers. Neither'll get us through, but Status Optimal thinks they're both fine." The bay lights pulsed, dimmed, then flared. On the panel above the hatch, text unspooled in stark white. "Service acknowledged." Then it vanished. Status optimal. Volkov flattened her notebook page with her palm, almost pressing through the paper. A sound shuddered through the bay. 3 slow knocks from the annex. This time, they rattled the tools on the rack. Nico swore softly. It's keeping time with the storm.
The howl rose outside, lupine and human at once, the knocks echoing in rhythm, like wolves pounding on the walls with iron fists.
Kira ignored it, her focus locked on Cass. You're going to med. That's final. Not in order, Cass said. Physics, right? That's what you told me. Physics, Kira repeated. Her hands were steady. Her voice wasn't. Ro stirred a step apart, eyes on the dead sleds. His mind ran in spirals. If they were built to fail, then someone had built them here. If someone had built them here, then someone wanted them inside. And if someone wanted them inside... Cass's voice broke the spiral. She leaned into Kira's shoulder for balance, her gaze locked on him. Listen, don't let it decide for you. Ro froze under the weight of it. He didn't know if she meant the station, the system, or himself. The hatch seals hissed. Cold air curled in, carrying the howl of the storm. It sounded like wolves with human mouths. The light steadied.
The rope pulled back, not from the wind.
Chapter 14, Departure. They made it as far as the rail. Kira counted the steps against the rubber matting. Numbers were the only things that still obeyed her. 8. Click. 8. Click. The tether hissed through Ro's harness in small, well-behaved bites. Volkov moved a half step behind him, tethered to the same line, her notebook sealed flat against her chest like a spare lung. Cass sat propped on the bench near the bay door, bandage bright as a flag. The carved links dug crescents into her palm. She watched Ro the way a lighthouse watches a ship in weather, not with hope, just with insistence.
"You're certain?" Kira said, because she had to say the words once more, even though certainty was extinct. Volkov's goggles were fogging at the edges. "No, that's all I know."
Ro didn't answer. He leaned his weight forward to test the line. The reel gave a tiny metallic complaint, a sound like a throat clearing. Nico handed out last checks like party favors. Flares, outer pouch. Whistles if you want to hear each other scream. Masks when the wind starts eating lungs. He tried on a grin, then discarded it. Bring me a postcard from the scenic ruins. Stay on the rail, Kira said. Trust the rope before the compass. 8 steps between anchors. Clip every time. Blind or not, the rail will walk you home if you let it. Volkov lifted the compass anyway. Watched the needle twitch like a nervous animal in a glass cage. I'll trust both if they're kind. Kindness isn't a property of weather, Kira said. It came out too sharp. She softened, just enough. Come back, quickly.
Ro finally looked at Cass. Whatever he meant to say didn't survive the distance. She saved him from the ruin of it. "Listen," she told him, voice low, "don't get distracted. Don't let anything come between you and the line." Her voice shook on the last word, and she blinked hard, as if brushing the wetness away with will alone. She turned toward Volkov, softer now, "And that goes for you too, Lena."
He nodded. It felt like being blessed and accused at once. Kira slapped the panel. The inner hatch sighed open. She set her palm against the jamb and felt the metal answer. A faint, living vibration that wasn't the storm. The outer hatch cracked its seal. Cold rolled in, thin and ambitious, tasting the room for weakness. Above the door, a line unspooled. 0216. Exit route engaged. Status, optimal. They stepped into the vestibule. Kira followed to the threshold.
the farthest she could go without handing her spine to the wind. 8, she called. Clip. Ro nodded without turning. Carabiner. Click. The small, righteous satisfaction of a thing doing what it's for. Volkov mirrored him, pencil already inside its bag. She wrote by reflex, 0216, exit achieved. Inside command, Nico squinted at the rail cam. White, more white. The timestamp slid from 0216 to 0218 without 0217 ever existing. Kira? Time just skipped. Log it, Kira said, not looking away from the door. Nico wrote, missing 0217, and underlined it twice, hard enough to bruise the paper. On the annex thermal, gray, condensed into a figure, row height, palm flat to the 4B bulkhead. The silhouette turned its head towards the camera. The feed smoothed to flat. No anomaly detected. Status, optimal.
If I see that message one more time, I'm gonna break the screen, Cass growled. Kira didn't look up. Not with that arm, you won't.
Outside, they hit the first anchor. Row clipped. The rope pulled back. Not wind, a measured, coaxing pressure against the rail's line, like a hand on the small of the back suggesting a different path. Counter it, Volkov said. 2 steps left, 1 back. They set their weight opposite the pull. The pressure relented and returned. Patient. A tone pinged from ahead. Clean, friendly, like a microwave announcing soup. Proceed to McMurdo Station. Follow acoustic beacon.
The rope says north-northeast, Volkov said. The tone is east. Nico frowned. So what's east then? Never mind that now, Volkov replied, too quickly.
Trust the rope, Rose said on reflex. The rail hummed a low railroad hum, as if offended.
In Ned, Cass thumbed the analgesic pumps. The pump clicked, screen blinking, infusion running. She waited for the cool bite of relief in her vein. Nothing. The line to her cannula stayed dry as a lie. She pressed again. Nothing. Infusion running? More like infusion running away, she muttered. Her pulse stuttered. She thought she heard wolves shifting in the vent above her head, pacing with her panic. Kira, she said into the intercom, her breath coming in thin. It's not delivering. It's broken.
The med panel pulsed back. Too polite. Service acknowledged. Status, optimal. Kira swore and pivoted to her console. Nico, override the med bay, now. I'm already in, he said, keys rattling. For a moment, the display admitted defeat. Abort received, access removed. Then just as fast, it reset cheerful green.
The annex knocked once, just once, and the cups on the shelf rang obediently. Outside, the tuned wire exposed to the wind found its voice. Volkov, it said in the exact timbre of calm reception. Manual entries received. She stopped dead. Ro, did you... I heard it, he said. His mouth had gone so dry he could feel the shape of each tooth. Keep moving. The message continued, perfectly courteous, perfectly wrong. Proceed to McMurdo Station. Follow acoustic beacon. They reached the second anchor. Ro clipped. Volkov clipped. The rope tugged again, this time stronger, with the tone. It's trying to walk us, Rose said. Procedure, Volkov told herself more than him. Manual or nothing. She took the rope in both hands and set her weight opposite the pool. Ro mirrored her, 2 bodies arguing with the line. The pressure eased, not gone, but noticed. In command, the McMurdo channel crackled to life, bright with weather and authority.
Echo Point, this is McMurdo Ops. We have your party on approach. Welcome home. Nico blanched. Nope. Kira Key transmit. Identify yourself. Static. Then Lang's voice, warm and impossible. Good to be home. Every screening command blinked no anomaly detected in sequence, like a laugh track, then returned to status optimal. Outside, they reached the third anchor. Roll's clip jammed against the burr of ice. He worked it with gloved fingers. It refused, in the small, spiteful way inanimate objects do when they are the last thing between you and a feeling. Volkov's hand came up, quick and sure. A twist, a push, a new angle. The gate sprang. Procedure, she said. Then speed. He almost smiled. Compromise. Never my favorite word, she said, and they moved. The status display over the door printed a new line, as polite as a reminder.
It lingered, wanting to be read. Then it slowly smiled green. Status optimal. Kira, Nico said quietly, eyes on the rail cam's timestamp, which now hopped from 0220 to 0222, with no 21 in between. We're losing minutes. Kira slapped abort on the egress panel anyway. The button acknowledged with perfect manners. Abort received, access removed, and wiped the message to green.
She understood the pinch not as metaphor, but as mechanism. The house had their bodies, their breath and their clocks and pumps. It would shepherd what it couldn't erase. She stepped to the threshold and forced her voice to be a place they could stand. Roll, Volkov, hear me. Trust the rope, trust your weight, trust nothing that speaks. Volkov exhaled fog into her mask.
The rope pulled back,
and smiled a
not from
small,
the wind.
private smile. Confirmed. She wrote without looking down. 022. Beacon issuing false vector. Rope contested. Later, when she checked, the page held only a straight pencil mark. They hit the fourth anchor. The compass settled hard north, then jerked east, as if pinched between fingers. 3 anchors more, Volkov called. Then we lose sight of the door. Then don't look back, Cass whispered in Med. Surprising herself. Pain came in clean, honest waves now. She clung to that honesty with both hands. On the annex thermal, the rose-shaped figure re-resolved, palm to steel.
On the annex thermal, the rose-shaped figure re-resolved, palm flat to the steel bulkhead. For 1 second, it held there, the posture wrong in its stillness. Then it turned its head, cocked, as if listening to some private signal. Before anyone could comment, the feeds smoothed to flat grey, obedient as a curtain dropping. Cass swore under her breath. Don't tell me that's a coincidence. Volkov adjusted her goggles, knuckles white. Coincidence would leave a trace. This leaves nothing. Kira leaned closer to the monitor, jaw locked. Or it leaves exactly what it wants us to see. Nico gave a short, humorless laugh. Status optimal.
It turned its head again, as if listening. The feed obligingly smoothed to flat. No anomaly detected. Status optimal. The wind changed texture, a fine silt that poured into joints. The rail turned left with the arrogance of geography. Row followed, because following a line is a virtue when you have nothing else. 5th anchor. Click. The rope tugged like a patient teacher correcting posture. He set against it. It relented. In command, the clocks clicked to 0223, then advanced in unison by a minute nobody felt.
Nico wrote, "Nobody felt it," and underlined it hard. 6th anchor. Click. The friendly tone ahead split into two, a harmony designed to please. He felt it in his jaw. "It doesn't need names," he said softly. "It needs what we write." "It knows us," Volkov answered. 7th anchor. Beyond it, the rail bent away and disappeared into the full-throated white. Roll looked back.
How can it know us?
Echo Point was a small, dark parenthesis in the white. Kira, a bracket in the doorway. Nico, a pale smudge beside her. Somewhere behind them, Cass, with a wooden lynx in her hand. He had the measure of all their distances, none of their forgiveness. "Don't," Volkov said, not unkindly. "It wants that." He faced forward. The rope hummed faint, like breath caught in the throat. He clipped. Kira exhaled the breath she'd been holding since the first step. "8th," she whispered, not sure if she meant to say it out loud. On the display, a polite line appeared. 0224. Egress monitored. Status optimal. Kira put her palm flat to the jamb, as if to bless the door after the fact. "There's no going back."
There wasn't before, Kira answered, but this time she believed it. The annex knocked once more, just once, and the cups rang in chorus. The bay air felt suddenly thinner, as if someone had opened a second, secret door. In Med, the pump chirped, "Infusion complete," though nothing had entered Cass's vein. Outside, the wind pressed a palm to Rose's chest, weighing what was inside. He leaned into it and went. Volkov followed, pencil scratching a straight line. Nonsense, ritual, proof she was still here. 0225, manual or nothing. The white took them, as if it had been waiting. The rope traced a quiet, faithful line through an absence that pretended to be a world. Inside, every clock advanced together by a minute.
Chapter 15. Loose Rail. Echo Point. The amber lamp in Control 2 glowed low. Kira had her gloves off, both hands on the panel as if weight could force it honest. Nico was under the table with the service hatch open, cables between his fingers. "Playback last hour," Kira said. Nico started the playback. Kira heard her own voice rolling from the speakers, clipped, procedural. "South door cycle, priority 1. She looked in astonishment at Nico. "I didn't say that," she said. "It's your voice, dear. Believe me, I know." The jab he might have made stayed unspoken, hanging between them, heavier than the static. She glanced at the door, shut. No lock logged, no pressure change. The log blinked green. Status, optimal. Nico tried to shoot the screen with his eyes. Nothing. He let out a breath, almost a laugh, and shook his head. Again her voice. "Confirm. Cycle now." Same cadence, words she had not spoken. Kira shook her head at the indicators. "We can't trust the lights anymore. They're the station's voice." Nico tapped the box he'd bolted together the day before. Wires, coils, a cracked dial salvaged from storage. The bulbs stuttered, then held steady. Red, red, red. "This isn't the station. It's analog. No software, no uplink, no way in. If it shows red, it's mimicry. That's why it won't lie." He nodded at the glowing row. "Trust this. Old school." He frowned. Paper? His crooked smile showed teeth. Grandpa mode. Old and dumb indeed. Write this. Kira did not tell Cass to cycle that cabinet. Nico tore a sheet from the pad, scrawled the line, and underlined not 3 times. He held the page up like a relic, the ink still wet. For posterity, he muttered. For a heartbeat, he thought he caught the edge of a smile on her face, but it slipped away before it could settle.
On the rail. Rose stepped aside from the wind's push, then moved back to center. Rubber mat, steel rail, anchor posts every 8 meters. Volkov behind him, tethered taut, clips, ticking. Hard ice left, Volkov said. Stay low. Copy. Row bent, glove on steel. 8 steps and a clip. A mantra, part prayer, part math. They reached a post listing in snow, bolts exposed, ice curled around the base. That's loose, Volkov said. If it goes, it drags the line. We bypass. Row kicked snow clear to metal. The post shifted a fraction. Ice anchor, Row said. Double tether. Volkov drilled. Row leaned into the gale and looped into the new anchor. They bridged the failing post and tested. It held. Row tapped the post with his knife, then carved a small lynx in the paint. That doesn't help, Volkov said. It says we were here. It says you own a knife. But her voice had softened. They moved on. 8 steps, clip. 40 meters later, the rail trembled under Row's palm. Not wind, regular, like hands gripping further along. Do you feel that? Yes, Volkov said. There's nobody out here. Then it's something. Keep moving.
Echo point. Nico cranked Med's door open. Pneumatics were on safe, meaningless until the day they weren't. Cass sat half upright on the cot, skin pale, hairline damp. Across her forearm, in thick black marker, the words stood stuck. No paper here. I am Cass. Nico stared. She lifted the arm with a shrug. Told you, no paper. Flesh'll have to do.
Kira was already at the pump. The screen purred, infusion running. She pulled the line, raised the tip, no drop. She tossed it aside and spun the valve. It's lying, Cass said.
Kira nodded once. Yeah, it is. She yanked the needle free and pressed gauze to the spot, laying Cass's hand back on her thigh, the black marker smeared beneath the cloth. Kira yanked the main breaker. Lamps duttered, the pump sighed dead. And nothing came back. Nico straightened, breathing hard, a crooked grin on his face. Sometimes you just gotta pull the plug. The intercom ticked once. All 3 froze. Annex. Then back. Locks manual. She looked Cass in the eye. The medicine was starting to bite. Cass felt heavy, eyelids dragging, the cot pulling her down.
You stay on the bed. Cass lifted her chin. Yes, boss. I'll leave the analog recorder, Nico said at the door. If anyone talks to you, answer into that. Fine, Cass said. Kira paused at the door. The latch clanged metal on metal, an honest sound in a dishonest building. Cass called after them, anger under the breath. I'm crew, not cargo. The words bit harder than Kira wanted to admit. In Control 2, the analog recorder's red bulbs kept their steady glow. Nico tore a fresh sheet and wrote the time by hand. On the rail. They crossed a short bridge over a shallow ravine. Wind whistled.
Midway, the bridge sang, low drone, then a second note. Ro felt it in bone.
The girders flexed under the wind, a resonance he knew. Steel moaning, nothing more. But the second note didn't belong.
Don't stop, Volkov snapped. Through. They crossed. The tremor faded. If it's wind, Ro said. And if not, stopping won't help. They clipped into the next eye. They moved into thicker drift where the mat vanished under rime. Ro used his forearm to sweep a trench to the next eye. His breath fogged his visor and froze in webbed crystals at the edges. Volkov kept count aloud, a steady metronome against the storm. 50 meters later, the vibration returned, stronger. Ro counted 7, 8, clip, when a new sound came. Behind them, 2 posts back, a perfect echo of their rhythm. 8 steps, clip.
No human stepped that clean. The timing was exact, like a recording fed back through steel.
The echo steps matched their timing with machine cruelty, never hurrying, never slowing. It was like being paced by a ghost with a stopwatch. Ro felt the urge to look, to give the thing a face, and didn't. He didn't turn. You hear it? Volkov asked. Yes. They moved. The vibration slid, no longer behind. Underneath. Ro's boot found steel that bit back, like teeth. The anchor post ahead should have been blank. Instead, a mark was gouged deep into the plate.
4 lines, too sharp for weathering, too deep for a passing boot. Fresh, deliberate.
Volkov's breath hissed. He shook his head. That's not mine. I was never even here before. We're not the first ones here today. The wind howled. The rail shuddered again. Ro's gut clenched. Volkov's hand froze on her tether. Behind the gale came a sound that wasn't wind at all. Footsteps, perfectly matched, closing, and then a metallic snap of a clip locking shut.
Chapter 16. False Light. Rec Room. The rec room hummed with the tired fan that never quit. Cass balanced a cracked paddle on her palm, rolling the ball back and forth. Ro would have stood quiet across the cable, eyes steady, waiting. She almost caught herself waiting for him now. Instead, it was Nico in the doorway, patch leads looped over his shoulder, grin tilted like he'd already won something. You're supposed to be in med, Cass. Does Kira even know you're here? Shut up and be glad you've got the unfair advantage. Cass leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Best of 3. Nico blinked. Now? Really? Unless you're scared. He dropped the coil and grabbed the spare paddle. No pause, no nod, just a sloppy serve that barely cleared the net. Cass caught it, sent it back. Clean. Winner gets ramen. She rolled her eyes. Just play. They rallied. Nico filled the gaps with chatter. Beautiful shot. Sponsors love that. She ignored him, eyes on the bowl, but the grin in his voice began to scrape. Next serve, he shouted the score like a sportscaster. 2-1, my lead. Her jaw tightened. Ro would have only given a nod. She bit down, focused, and drove the ball past him. That's more like it, Nico said. Crowd loves a comeback. The next serve clipped wide. Nico barked a laugh, then caught the hitch in her swing. His grin softened for a beat. You're stiff. Arm still giving you hell? Focus, Nico, she said, sharper than she meant. You're the one choking. Shouldn't even be playing with that burn.
Her bandaged arm trembled with the grip. She swung harder, but the reach faltered. She missed by a hand's width. His grin widened again, back to teasing. 3-2, don't blow it now. Heat climbed her neck. She served too fast. The stretch ripped at the burn, and the ball ricocheted off the corner, skittering under the bench. Nico doubled over, laughing. That was tragic. Her hand clenched on the bandage until the bandage pulled. Stop laughing. Can't help it. You make it too easy. Even with one arm, you'd smoke me usually. Something in her snapped. She slammed the paddle flat on the table, pain flaring sharp, ignored. Forget it. Not with you. She turned, shoulders tight, and strode for the door. Nico straightened, paddle still in hand. What did I do this time? The fan hummed on. The ball rolled in a lazy circle across the floor, tapped once against the table leg, and came still. Control. Nico's grin faltered, thin but still there, before Kira's voice cut from the door. Analog is online. If it blinks red, we treat it as false. In control, the rack glared with a solid line of red lamps. No amber, no green. Just the honest kind of wrong. Everything? Nico asked. Everything, Kira said. Start with door logic, eliminate what doesn't work, carry on with what does. Nico gave a crooked smile. Trial and error. Mostly error. Good old-fashioned problem-solving, boss. Cass pressed her hand to the glass. If it's all red, what am I supposed to trust? Your eyes and us. The word caught in her throat. Us. Thin as paper. Easy to tear. Nico plugged a bypass cord. The rack thunked. Red stayed red. Second cord. Third. Still red. We're failing across the board, he said, brow tightening at the unbroken red line. Kira scraped the frame with graphite pencil. Write it by hand. No one rewrites paper. Cass watched Nico scrawl the time and blunt numbers. He didn't look at her. She didn't look away. On the rail. False light. Rose saw the glow first as a smear behind gauze, then as two dim pulses far down the line. Volkov shaded her visor, crouched against the wind. Bend in the rail, maybe. Or a beacon. They hunched behind an anchor post. Volkov unclipped her meter, thumbed scan. Static spat, then steadied into a clean header. McMurdo relay. That's the ID tag of their comm beacon up north. Rose's back prickled. Matches what? You've seen this before. Volkov nodded, visor dim in the gale. Annex 4B, the sample it spat out last week. This signal is identical, bit for bit. It's not McMurdo. It's the same ghost. They sat with that. Rose scraped frost from the post, knife screeching as he cut a small cross into the plate. Proof against forgetting. Volkov hit record. If it's that anomaly in the house, I want evidence. Proof for who? Roe asked. For me, for when logs vanish. They moved. 8 steps, clip. The light held, then winked out as if cupped in a hand. Wind erased every edge. Echo point. In the equipment bay, Nico blocked the door bus with a hard splice, tape squealing around the plastic. Kira logged the change in graphite. Door voice bus, hard block, 1614. Cass's reflection hovered in the glass, like an outsider peering in. She scratched at the black letters on her thigh. I am Cass. Anything else you want me to trust? Trust that will tell you the truth, even when it's ugly, Kira said. Cass hissed under her breath. I sincerely hope you will. On the rail. The wind eased for a breath. 2 taps carried through. Pause, then 2 again. Not a beacon. A knock. Metal on metal. Rose signaled halt, crouched. The taps repeated,
impossible to place. Half a kilometer or 10 meters. The world gave him only pressure. Another post guessed. Rose scored another cross into the steel, as many as it takes. The knife squealed against frost. They moved on. The rail trembled, settled. When the light returned, closer this time, Volkov held the meter steady. The same header rolled, bit for bit. She didn't swear. That was worse. It wants us to follow. Everything here wants something. Doesn't mean we give it. They lingered longer than they should. The light stayed a ghost, then died. Echo point. Power bus next, Kira said. Nico climbed higher into the rack. If we pull the wrong line, we black out into whatever dream the station is having. Then we go slow, and we write it down. They built a stack of graphite notes, ugly but solid, while Cass drifted between the window and the door like she couldn't decide which side she belonged on. The rack stayed red. That, at least, felt true. On the rail. Cliff. The rail dipped into a shallow bowl. At the far lip, for 2 heartbeats, a lamp stood where the line bent, relay shack style, square and steady. Then wind shifted, and it was gone. Volkov jammed the meter against her chest. The same header rolled. Perfect. Then the screen went blank, wiped smooth. Signal lost, she said. Rose comm crackled. A voice rode in, warm and orderly, the kind used for routine updates. Relay secure, it said. They looked at each other through frost. Neither moved.